Hi, I'm Morgan.
And I'm Jake, and this is
Neverland
Neverland
Navigation
Navigation Radio,
Radio.
where we walk right down the middle of Main Street, USA's history,
Mm-hmm.
and uncover some fun stories from Disney past.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Main Street is one of my favorite parts. You know what I mean? I love
hmm
the feeling of that being the first thing you do. I don't know, it's magical.
Main Street is the ultimate reward for surviving the Ticket and Transportation Center.
Yeah.
I love that it does such a good job of immediately transporting you to a world so different from what you've experienced.
Right.
It's immediately, this turn of the century small town vibe with all these.
With a giant castle at the end.
Yeah, with that huge, fantastical castle,
Uh-huh.
which fits so naturally into the. No, it is uniquely Disney, that juxtaposition between that fantasy castle and Main Street USA. But Main Street USA definitely has its own little capsule of a vibe that I really appreciate as being your welcome into whichever of the castle parks around the world you're at.
I agree. I do too, and I think that I just there it's quaint, it's nostalgic,
Yes.
but I mean the number one word for me is magical.
hmm
I just feel like you're transported. That's when you're there. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
It's in the details,
Mm-hmm.
the marquees of the signs, some of them having, some really interesting, fun details on them, but also the window displays that
Yes.
are, moving and really
The forced
artistic.
perspective that they use forced perspective to make it look like things are bigger than they are.
hmm
I love that.
They pump smells out at you.
They do.
Yeah, you can see the little grates.
Do you have a favorite time on Main Street?
My favorite time on Main Street, I'm so glad you asked, is when the sun is just about to finish setting
Uh-huh.
and the
The
lights have
lights are
come
coming
on
on.
and
Yeah.
it's extremely busy because everyone's finding a spot for the fireworks.
Right.
So that part is not my favorite, but that is, if there were no um, bottlenecks of guests, if that weren't a consideration, then that would be my favorite time.
Yes, that's a gorgeous time.
The lights have just come on, but you can still see a lot of the daytime details because there's some light left from the sun. I really appreciate how Main Street has a totally different life at nighttime.
Yeah. So my favorite time would be night, but you're right because during the day you can see the details, like all of the names in the windows and
Uh,
stuff like that, and none of that is like, oh, we're just going to throw up some business names to make this seem like it's a thing. Every single name has a story behind it.
right.
So Jake and I picked one thing to talk about the history of today, but you could go on and on and on
Right.
because every single window has a story.
Yeah, the windows they are designed to honor people who have worked on the creation of um, these Disney parks things,
Yeah.
or Disney company things in general as well. Disney Legends get windows in the Main Street shops, and they're really cool to look at because you can see the names of a lot of familiar Imagineers who worked on a lot of the rides that are in the park that you're visiting. So it's a nice little tribute to the people who made the magic you're about to experience.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And then I especially love Main Street if there's a holiday going on.
Oh yeah.
The Christmas stuff that they put up on all the lamp posts along with the Christmas lights and the holly and all of that is amazing. The pumpkins, the pumpkin Mickey jack-o'-lanterns that they add.
Classic.
Oh my gosh, it's so classic and nostalgic, and it just brings warmth to my heart just thinking about it.
What's really a credit to Main Street is that they're really the only land, at least here in the Magic Kingdom on this coast, that fully decorates for the holidays.
Yeah.
There's no other land in Magic Kingdom that does that. So,
you mean it goes all out, like?
Well, yeah, it's like thoroughly decorated wherever you look.
Yes.
It's the only one that does it. So that immediately wins points in our books because Morgan's like a huge Christmas fan, and I
Yeah.
love the spirit of decorating. I love the huge presents underneath the tree
Yeah.
in the middle of Main Street. I love that it snows. I love fake snow.
Yeah, me too.
It really
Me
gets me
too.
going. So Main Street wins a lot of points in my book there
And
too.
it's pretty recent that they started adding that fake snow or Snope, as it's affectionately called by a lot of people here,
Yes.
to other parks. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's in Hollywood Studios now. It's in Disney Springs now, but that's relatively new. It used to be like a Main Street exclusive thing,
Yes.
like when I was.
And toward the end of Osborne,
Yeah, you're right. They did do it
spectacle
at
of
Osborne.
dancing lights over in when it was MGM
They might have
Studios.
done it always
Oh,
for
was that
Osborne. Yeah,
always?
it's as long as I can remember it. Now that you mention it, that felt like such a separate
Yeah,
thing to me.
it
It's
was
so
special.
funny. It's so
Yeah.
funny. But you're right. You're right. It was over there, but now it's in front of like Tower of Terror and
It's everywhere. It's in the Frozen sing along.
it's in the Frozen sing along. Yeah, yeah,
You can get Snoped at any park,
yeah, yeah.
except for Animal, maybe.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think it's in Animal Kingdom.
You get splashed in Finding Nemo. That's nice. Or Bubbles or something, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, are you ready to dive into some fun stories from Main Street's past?
Yes, but I would like to take a moment to say Main Street is not something that you should just think of as an entryway and like run through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that there's so much in the even the decor on the insides of the shops and stuff like that that you should take your time to appreciate. It's so amazing.
What's your favorite Main Street shop?
It's funny. I was thinking about asking you that, and then I was like, I'm not sure I could answer, so I'm not gonna.
That's fair.
I maybe Emporium as a whole, but that's like kind of not fair because it takes up the whole left hand side.
Yes.
I love so many different.
But I love looking up in the Emporium, in the
Yes.
in between little hallways between the main rooms where they have the merchandise.
Yeah.
If you look up, and even in the some of the grand rooms, they have these little inlays in the ceiling, and
Yeah.
they've got these gorgeous, gorgeous displays of like fashion and luggage and hats and
Right.
all
Right.
kinds of like amazing detail going on up there. And it's just like such a pleasure to be in an environment where there's so much amazing detail and thought put into just the displays in the ceiling.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes,
It's
I agree.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
I love those kinds of details. So the Emporium definitely has a lot of credit in my book for like all of the thought put into every where you look. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I also love that glass working shop.
I do too. I really like that too. But do you like it for the decor in there, or do you just like what they're doing in there?
I like. Isn't that the one where there's actually like a glass firing oven in the back
Yeah,
of
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
amazing. I love
Right,
that.
right. And I that speaking of, that's what I was thinking of that when I was thinking about the confectionery.
Yes.
Is it's cool because you can see people working.
Very cool.
Yeah, I love that. I love all of the like kind of the interactive nature of all of it. There used to be more of that.
Hmm.
But yeah,
There's still a little left. My husband and I, the day after we got married, we spent the day at Magic Kingdom. Probably my favorite day of being alive. It was beautiful. But at the end of our day, before we were going out, we stopped in the confectionery, and they have this thing where you can make your own popcorn mixture.
yeah.
So you can choose popcorn or kettle corn or whatever.
Yeah, and then add candies and stuff. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
add like candy, add a syrup, add different chunks of stuff or nuts or whatever. And it was really cool to have something so hands-on for the guests
Yeah.
to experience.
Right, and I think that because of where that's located, a lot of people don't even know it's there.
No.
So like you have to go. It's the confectionery, but it's almost an offshoot.
Yeah, it's on the if you are looking at the confectionery, it's to the far right side of it, and it's kind of in the back right corner, toward the front corner of Main Street.
Yeah, like you're
And
going towards Tony's Town Square.
yeah, like you're about to cross the street.
Yeah,
And it's this
it's a little
little
hidden.
it's this little counter back there where you go up and you let them know what you want your mixture to be, and you grab it and go.
Yeah,
Super easy, great way to get if you want to let someone from your family pick what kind of popcorn,
Yeah.
someone pick what goes in, someone pick the syrup. I think it's a really cute way to get guests wrapped up in the experience.
yeah. I think I liked the Main Street Bakery before it was a Starbucks because it just felt more authentic,
Yeah.
and now it feels a little corporate, but they did keep the decor. I don't eat at Casey's a lot, but I do love the decor there. And I like the food. I don't know why we don't wind up going there, you know?
Sometimes the line is really long. It's very popular.
I think that's it. I
Being
think
right
it's,
on Main Street.
you'd have to make the decision to do it maybe on the way out, and
Yep.
the line is always so long. But I like the little corn dog nugget thing.
Yes, those are fabulous. And honestly, they're my favorite fireworks snack
Yeah.
because I'm on Main Street anyway. And the truth is, you've got to have somebody in your party who you get your fireworks spot, presumably a little early, and then
Mhm.
somebody holds down the fort, and then somebody goes and gets their Casey's, but not like right before the show is about to start.
Right.
Because, first of all, you're never going to find your person because they push you
Oh my
forward and
gosh.
everything gets shuffled around.
It becomes like in a concert when you're at the front.
A
What's that called?
crush. A crush. It's like a pit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like the pit. Yeah.
It is. That is the feel sometimes in like the premier viewing locations on
Yeah.
Main Street.
Yeah.
But
like
then
towards the-
also, it's so rude to cut in front
Yeah.
of people right at the very end or during the show. So be considerate, I would say, is good advice.
Yeah. My favorite fireworks snack from Main Street
Mm-hmm.
is the ice cream at where you
The
can
Plaza ice cream shop.
yeah, yes. And I like the strawberry and the cookies and cream. And this is Edie's ice cream. So you could actually buy it at the grocery store, and I have to try to like satisfy that.
Yes.
But it's not really the same. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Something about the magic in the air changes the flavor a little bit. Um
The pixie dust. additive.
yes.
We one time, our friend Brittany got a kitchen sink ice cream from there one time that I thought was so magical.
Yeah.
It was like a Minnie's kitchen sink.
And you get to keep the bowl, and it's shaped like a kitchen sink.
Yeah, that runs you a pretty penny. So,
It does.
You know, it's
Yeah.
it's certainly an investment for
well,
an ice cream.
but it's a family shareable item, I think.
Right, it could be a souvenir for you as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So did you guys all share it? Were there like
Yeah,
yeah? I think there's a
7
multiple.
spoons or
Oh.
something. Yeah,
I think there's multiple scoops of ice cream, right?
yeah,
And
it's-
like the whole works.
yeah,
like,
it's a pretty
Sunday.
big thing. Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. I've seen that and thought about it. It just always seems like too much. But I mean, we could all go do it, you know?
Yeah, it's on the list of things I want to do.
Yeah. Although I've heard the one at Boardwalk's better.
Beaches and cream.
Mhm.
Oh, at Boardwalk.
Yeah. I'm sorry, not Boardwalk, but you
But
knew
across
exactly
the-
what I was going to.
I figured out
Same
what you
area.
meant, yeah.
Yes. No, you're
Across the Crescent
across
Lake.
the way from Boardwalk.
Yeah.
Yes, at Beaches and Cream.
All right. Well, now that we've figured out our favorites, do we want to dive into some selections? I want to guess what you did.
Okay.
I have no idea. It's kind of hard because although there are multiple locations on Main Street, it's hard for me to pin down what you would want to do. So I'm going to say you did the Crystal Shop.
Okay, that is not what I did.
Okay.
Okay, do you want me to just tell you now, or do you want to keep trying?
Well, you went first last week, so I think I should go first.
Oh,
this week
okay.
to
So
balance
should
things
I be
out.
guessing what you did?
I suppose.
Okay. I will guess the confectionery.
That is a good guess. Now, it would have been hard for you to guess right because I kind of cheated. I don't know if this really counts, but I did the railway
Oh, okay.
because I felt
That seems fair.
like the Walt Disney World and Disneyland railways are anchored in Main Street,
Uh-huh.
and there's actually some historical
It's
reason.
the first thing you see.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's some historical reasons of why I say that will also come up as I get in through the thing, and you'll see why Main Street is the only category that this would actually appropriately fit into. And I've been wanting to do this one, so
Okay, yeah.
I'm kind of excited to do it. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All aboard, as one might say.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna start kind of way back. Picture it. Close your eyes. You're going back in time. Walt Disney's there, and he's obsessed with trains.
He is. Yeah.
And he sometimes has a hard time being an animation studio owner when his workers do things like revolt against him in a strike, and he's really sad about it, and they're really sad that they're not feeling that they're understood. So there's a lot of animosity.
Yeah.
And so to escape from all of that, sometimes he turns back to his love of trains as like a hobby, a fixation, and probably what some would call an obsession, because this man was super into locomotives. And I'm going to
Really?
tell you
To an
all about how.
obsessive level.
To the level that the
Like
Carolwood.
we are with Disney.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
yeah. If there were podcasts back
About
then,
trains? Yeah.
Walt Disney would be all aboard a train
Okay,
podcast.
good to
Choo
know.
choo.
Good to know.
He loved trains so much that the Carolwood Pacific Railroad was a rideable miniature railroad run by Walt Disney in the backyard of his home in Los Angeles, California.
Wow.
So Disney loved trains so much that he got one of these babies installed. It featured the Lily Bell, a 1:8 scale live steam locomotive named after his wife, and was built by the Walt Disney Studios machine shop.
Okay.
So, Walt Disney had always been fascinated with trains since he was a child, and he, in his comings and goings in Hollywood, met some people on the more whimsical side of things, like he was, who really enjoyed these model trains, even some of his own animators. So, when he was looking for something to fill his hobby time and keep his hands busy, he started going into the building of this model train collection and installation in his own backyard.
Is it surprising that we don't have like a animated movie revolving around a train?
Yeah. Do you mean like in the as a sequel to Cars and Planes?
Oh, okay. I meant during yes. That's funny. I mean, there's that whole Casey Jr. train,
Oh,
but that's
yeah.
not a
It's not a whole
movie.
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it is surprising that there's not something more like train based, even
Yeah.
if it takes place on a train or something. You would
Yeah.
figure maybe.
I would have thought.
Right. But maybe he wanted to keep his train life
All for
in
himself.
in the like hobby section. You got to keep your work trains and your personal trains separated.
Sure.
Right. Well, he wouldn't for long because Mickey Mouse Park was a planned small studio-side railroad park with themed lands that served as a conceptual precursor to Disneyland, and that was only the beginning of Walt Disney's train journey. So Walt is thinking, okay, we've got this animation studio, we're looking to rev up some revenue, so why don't we attach a little miniature train to the park as part of the tram tour?
Yeah.
So he dreams up the idea of including this rideable miniature train at the studios, and the idea of the studio tour was eventually replaced by the idea of an amusement park named Disneyland across the street from the studio.
Oh my gosh.
And in one of its first design concepts at the proposed location, a miniature steam train ride was included as well. As well as a full steam railroad attraction. So the trains got moved from what was going to be this quaint studio side attraction to that idea is what became Disneyland.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So this all started with trains.
Started with the train.
What I'm trying to tell you is Disneyland and therefore Disney parks as a concept were delivered by trains.
That's fascinating. Do you happen to know if his was the first like rideable ride train, like for fun?
No.
Because they're like in all amusement parks now.
Right. Oh, you mean like was the Disneyland Railroad the first like amusement train?
Yeah.
I don't think so,
Okay.
because some of the places that they went other parks to get inspiration from had like rideable miniature trains, but I think it may have been the biggest full-scale rideable amusement installation train, because really there aren't theme parks as we know them before Disneyland.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was just amusement parks with roller coasters and stuff, and I don't think any of them had trains. So I think it would logically make sense, but I'm not going to say it.
I think Knott's Berry Farm predated Disneyland.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to
But it wasn't the vibe of a complete theme park with themed lands and stuff. It was very different when it was.
It was like a stationary carnival, I think.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, go on.
So, all right, the first test runs of the Disneyland Railroad's trains along the full length of its route occurred on July 10th, 1955. 1 week before Disneyland's opening. So they thought,
Wow.
well, let's get these things tested, I
Hey,
guess.
we're opening in a few days.
Full steam ahead,
Maybe we should
literally.
just check and see if these things are working.
Right.
Were they? Were they working?
In fact, they were.
Oh, good.
Thank God.
Because that was a terrible, like, failure
Right.
in a lot of ways. So, but not the train. Good.
Right.
Okay.
The train it was getting from stop to stop.
Okay, great.
The steam trains of the Disneyland Railroad were the first of Disneyland's attractions to become operational. So
Okay.
they're the first things that do work, which is great.
Wow.
On July 17th, 1955, Disneyland and the Disneyland Railroad opened, and the day began with Walt Disney driving the Disneyland Railroad's number 2 locomotive and its passenger train into the Main Street USA station.
Oh.
That was the kickoff. The railroad eventually became one of the world's most popular steam-powered railroads in the world, with an estimated 6.6 million passengers each year. That's a lot of people on the railroad.
Wow.
So when I say it got from stop to stop, I mean it got in a complete circle, because originally Main Street was the only station of the Disneyland Railroad.
Oh, really?
And then came Frontierland Station as well. And then Fantasyland Station was added, but it was closed when the World's Fair ended and they wanted to import It's a Small World. So no more Fantasyland Station. We're going to use that land to put It's a Small World there. So we're talking early Disneyland days. It's a Small World has not even been brought over from the World's Fair yet.
Yeah.
So on March,
I'm picturing where that is in Disneyland. It's in a big space. So yeah, that makes sense.
That used to be the train
Interesting.
depot. On March 31st, 1958, the number 3 locomotive participated. All the locomotives participated in the inauguration ceremony for the Disneyland Railroad's Grand Canyon diorama, which features a foreground with lifelike animals and a background on a single piece of seamless canvas. So it's this big sprawling backdrop, which is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's got these figures in front of it, and it's the first diorama installation into the railroad. And it's really well received by guests because it kind of breaks up the journey in a way that is really kind of classic theme park.
Yeah, it's still pretty impressive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we rode on this the last time that we went to Disneyland, and I was like, this actually seems better than the dioramas and stuff that we have in the land ride, Living with the Land. And I was like, but that doesn't really make sense because this was made so much soon. Like, it has the same like strings that they do light on to make rain at one point, and I'm like, oh, it's like the land, and I was like, but it's better.
Yeah, this was something.
It's just really impressive. I think they put a ton into it.
It's something that Walt Disney himself was involved in, the installation of the Grand Canyon scene. And it was met with like a big fanfare. It had a ribbon cutting ceremony.
Or maybe it's not better. It's just that I go on Living with the Land all the time. So I was, but
you were impressed.
Yeah. So I was so impressed, which was kind of shocking for me.
Yeah.
Because I do all this new stuff. You know what I mean?
Right. So, like, not that. I understand what you mean, that we get to experience what is considered the cutting edge of theme park entertainment.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean. So when you see something that was made in the 50s and you're impressed by it,
it's a testament to it, truly.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, so we've got this Grand Canyon thing, and people love it. And then New Orleans Square is a planned addition, has not opened yet. So the Frontierland station ends up being retired so that they can put in a New Orleans station instead. So there's just a little switch there. And then they premiere the Primeval World diorama put on display in 1966 adjacent to the Grand Canyon one. So now we've got another one. And the reason this exists is because the audio animatronic dinosaurs are from Ford's Magic Skyway, which is one of the attractions created by Disney for the 1964 World's Fair. So Disney makes this thing for Ford that, like, basically that a Ford can take you anywhere and takes people through history, and it's pretty interesting. But the audio animatronics...
This was not in the parks?
No, this was for the World's
I was like,
Fair.
I haven't heard of this.
But then we get those animatronics, and they end up in the diorama.
Interesting that they decided not to put it in the park, like they did with Carousel Progress and It's a Small World.
I'm not 100% sure on this, but I believe it was like a licensing negotiation type of thing, because Ford had specifically contracted Disney to make this for them as an advertisement.
Yeah.
So I guess they didn't want to sit back down to the table to or maybe
Then
Disney
they would
didn't
have had
feel
to, sponsor it
right.
for like, and the contracts were pretty long.
But I'm glad we get the animatronics out of
Yeah,
it
yeah.
because they're still there, and also because they're a really, I feel like on a tram tour, a pretty impressive,
Yeah.
on a train tour, a pretty impressive little installation. It makes the Walt Disney World Railway look boring.
It really does. I really
Specifically
wish.
the dioramas, right? Like those are
Yes.
the big difference.
Instead of dioramas, we get going through like a tunnel where it's super loud.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
it's
the
not that
tunnel
I
is not
don't
my
love,
favorite.
it's not that I don't love the Disney World train. I do. I just
Yeah,
like the Disneyland one better.
absolutely. Well, you might have some more love for the Disney World one by the time this is over too, because it's
Okay.
got some neat stuff that we're gonna get to as well
Okay.
quickly. So the Mickey's Toontown expansion of the park happens, and Mickey's Toontown Depot, which is a cartoon-themed building, replaces the Videopolis station in 1993. So there was a station that tied into Videopolis, which was this like teen-aimed 80s dance club that was
Okay.
inserted into Disneyland and Tomorrowland for a little bit. That has its
Wild.
own interesting history that we might get into one time, but it's cool that this kind of intersects with that. So this is kind of just a fun fact that I thought people might find interesting that I thought was interesting. The diesel oil for the fuel to generate steam in the locomotive was replaced in 2007 with B98 biodiesel, which is apparently 2% diesel oil and 98% soybean oil.
Oh wow. So it's much better for the environment, I take it.
Right. So that's
Are they
really,
using that for the cars? Maybe maybe
I
they
don't
are,
know.
and we're like dogging on them for no good reason.
For the Tomorrowland cars? Oh,
Uh
I have no idea. It smells like they're using like a freshly killed dinosaur. Like it smells so
huh. Yeah,
pollution heavy over there.
I agree.
It smells like they're fueling them with smoke. I don't
Yeah,
know what the
yeah.
problem is. Anyway, there were problems with storing the soybean fuel for some
Hmm.
reason, so they switched back to conventional diesel for a brief period, and then they adopted a new biodiesel incorporating recycled cooking oil.
Okay,
So now the trains run on recycled oil that was used in the restaurants at
nice.
Disney.
That probably also saves them money.
I'm sure. I'm sure. The balance sheet is aligning nicely for them. I'm positive of it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So the Disneyland Railroad has its own storied history with a lot of the different locomotives that were used on it. But I also want to talk about our railroad a little bit
Sure.
because it has an interesting, story as well. The development of the railroad began from the late 60s to its opening in 1971, and it was overseen by Roger Broggie, vice president and general manager of MAPO. So this guy was Walt's right hand man for the mechanics of the attractions at
Uh-huh.
Disneyland in terms of like what was possible for the engineering side of things. So super invaluable. Also had a love for trains. So it seemed like a good person for the job. Previously supervised the building of the Disneyland Railroad as well. So we're talking about an expert. From his experience with that railroad, he determined that it was better to use existing steam locomotives rather than ones entirely from scratch like Disneyland's first locomotive. So he wanted to source locomotives instead of fabricate them. In 1968, he contacted a rail historian who recently wrote that the Mexican Narrow Gauge, a book containing information about locomotives that could be obtained from a railroad boneyard in Yucatan, Mexico. So guess what? In 1969, Disney goes down, and railroad building expert Earl Vilmer went down with them to investigate, and they determined that the four locomotives built that were sitting there in the graveyard could potentially be salvaged for use in the park. So they pay a total of what at the time was $32,750 for all of the locomotives. And the locomotives, alongside all of their fittings and spare parts, were immediately shipped back to the United States by rail. So they went down to Mexico because they got a tip that there might be some usable locomotives in a railroad boneyard, and they went and they bought them.
Wild.
So the five locomotives and the spare parts are This is so interesting. We're from the Tampa area. The 5 locomotives and their spare parts were sent to the Tampa Ship Repair and Dry Dock Company in Tampa, Florida, to receive aesthetic and mechanical restorations. So they got sent here to get fixed up, which was really interesting.
Yeah, that's
At the
awesome.
time, we were the closest facility to Walt Disney World with enough space to accommodate all of the locomotives at the same time. So the general idea was they were going to make them look like they were built in the 1880s.
But not the middle part, right?
Not the what?
Well, the parts where we all sit, it's just benches.
Mm-hmm.
Was that from Mexico too?
No, just the locomotive.
Just the
I
front
believe.
and
Yeah.
the back, maybe? Okay.
The like mechanical
Right.
locomotive portion, not the carriages, I don't think.
Okay.
I think those were fabricated here in Tampa, probably,
Yeah,
honestly.
okay.
So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
The general idea was to make them look like they were built in the 1880s, and to do that, they installed diamond smokestacks and square headlamps, which I guess I'm meant to believe tell us that they're from the 1880s. I think they're so pretty.
Yeah.
Like the steam trains running on the Disneyland Railroad, the first steam trains for the Walt Disneyland Railroad were the first to be finished, and they have been operating with the park ever since it opened on October 1st, 1971. Main Street was originally the only station, making only a round trip possible in our park. But then Frontierland and Mickey's Birthday Land stations were added. Hey, remember Mickey's Birthday Land?
Mm-hmm.
Mickey's Birthday Land became Mickey's Starland, which became Mickey's Toyland, which became Mickey's Toontown Fair. And then on February 11th, 2011, the Mickey's Toontown Fair section closed to make way for a Storybook Circus area, which was an expansion of New Fantasyland. The current Fantasyland station, built on the site of the former Toontown Fair location, opened in 2012. And here's the reason I went through all this. The new station's area was nicknamed Carolwood Park, paying tribute to Walt Disney's Carolwood Pacific Railroad that he built in his backyard.
Oh.
Right. So during its closure from December 2018 to December of 2022, all that time that our railroad was closed, the train stations were repainted and rewired, and many of the wooden railroad ties along the route were replaced with plastic ties, which apparently account for another 25 years of track maintenance. So they did a lot of good work while it was closed, I guess. They closed it so that they could reroute it for Tron,
Right.
and then they also took advantage of that time to do a bunch of maintenance to save on further wear on the track, which is
that's
pretty
good.
Cool.
Yeah. We were pretty bummed out when it was closed for so long.
It was very sad because I just became so used to it being gone.
Yeah.
It was really...
It was kind of shocking when we started hearing the horns again. And I think that that's one of the things I missed the most when it was gone, is not hearing it.
Yeah. It definitely added a lot of energy to the situation that I really enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's kind of like a brief overview of the histories of the Disneyland and Walt Disney World Railroads.
Yeah, it didn't sound like a brief overview, but I'm sure there's a lot,
Oh, there's so much more. A lot of and I should say, whoever developed the Wikipedia pages for those, thank you very much for sourcing a bunch of information for me that I got to explore. That's great. And also, I learned a lot of this information specifically about Mickey Mouse Park and stuff, which was that planned studio tour expansion, from watching a video by someone called Defunctland is the name of the channel. They're like super awesome, have a lot of cool Disney history videos. So I got a lot of that. I first heard some of this information there, and then when I was doing my research for this episode, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember hearing about this from there. So it was cool to find the full story.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great job.
Thank you.
The one that I wound up doing, I thought would have a lot more interesting, tellable history than it actually does. So mine's going to be a bit shorter.
That's okay.
It's interesting and it's fascinating, but it's not, it didn't give me as much. I don't know. There's not as much to talk about.
I guessed that you did the crystal shop.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Good guess, though. I do love the crystal shop.
Yeah, it's cool in there.
So what I actually wound up doing is the magic shop. And the reason I wound up doing it is because, well, I just really love the whole, like, facade that we've got. You know what I mean?
I do. I love that.
Yeah, I love the way it looks, the whole mysterious, like fun.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
enchanting, almost like cartoonish
Yes,
vibe it
yes.
has. Yeah.
And vintage, you know what I mean? Like I do think the magic shop was open when I was a kid, but I don't really remember it. I do remember the penny arcade.
Hmm.
Um, although I know that my brother bought or was bought a like a pack of trick cards at Disney World. I thought it was from Disney Springs, which back then was downtown Disney, but I guess it could have been here.
Hmm.
You know, like when you're younger, you're not like 100% sure. But I love the look of it. And then the other reason is I'm sure you already knew this. You guys probably know this too, but Steve Martin worked there.
Oh, I did hear that. Is this the
Yeah.
Disney World one or the Disneyland
Well,
one?
I'm going to touch on both.
Okay.
He worked at the Disneyland one, of
Oh,
course.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And you know, I'm a fan. I'm watching season 3 of Only Murders in the Building, so it was just in my head, and I was like,
yes,
yeah,
that makes sense.
the cast members that worked at either of the magic shops did a lot of like they would do card tricks and they would do tricks to show people that came in, and it was a very interactive experience to go in there, and I think that's such a cool concept.
To be honest, I don't remember it being a magic shop. Like, it currently still looks like a magic shop
Yeah.
from the outside, but I have no recollection of there being any magic in here. So I
think it closed as a magic shop before you were born.
Okay.
Or when you were an infant.
Well, there you go. So it's kind of like news to me. Well, I knew that Steve Martin had worked there and had done magic. So was like doing magic tricks the main draw of like what is the experience of going into the magic shop?
So it would be like the experience of going in there is it's like a creepy looking kind of area, like but in a fun way. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Kind of like if you guys are familiar, if you go into like Gideon's, the cookie place in Disney Springs, you'd never expect this if you haven't been in there. But if you go in there, it's like kind of creepy, but in a fun, cool way.
Yeah, like slightly macabre.
Or even Haunted Mansion. You know what I mean? It's got that kind of vibe to it. So they are actually selling magic tricks for kids, card decks, and with instructions on how to do tricks. Yes.
Cool.
And then these really elaborate, like movie quality, like masks.
Oh.
And that's kind of the creepy, like weird, interesting part. But then you'll have cast members that are like displaying the magic tricks. And I mean, it might be to get you to buy it, but it's also super fun.
Yeah, that is fun.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's something that would be fun for people now.
Yeah.
I don't really understand why they took it out, because now I think it would be such like a vintage fun experience where you would buy a souvenir that maybe if you especially have like a kid that is a little too old for like the kid souvenirs, you know what I mean? Like I think that would be perfect. But anyway, they did close it. There actually were 2 in both parks, which I didn't know until I started researching.
No idea.
So there's the Main Street Magic Shop, and so the first one was Merlin's Magic Shop, which was in Fantasyland, and I'm talking about Disneyland now. That was the first magic shop in all of the parks, right?
Cool.
Yeah. Then in Disney World, the Main Street Magic Shop opened in 1957, I'm sorry, not Disney World. In Disneyland, it opened in 1957 and replaced a music shop.
Another thing I didn't know.
Yeah.
Existed.
Right. Let's see. Sorry, I should have spaced out my notes a little bit better.
Oh, I do that too.
Yeah. But the main attraction was the cast members that were doing the tricks and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
I
wish I could have experienced it. I love that interactive stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of what you expect from Disney in some ways.
Yeah. I know. I think so too. And especially back in the day, maybe a little more so, although they definitely do their best to keep up with this. The customer service experience was something that was a big draw.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You didn't have, like, the employees were all about making your day magical. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Making sure.
Yeah. Um, so in the 1977 issue of Disneyland Line, which is an employee newsletter, they described the magic shop as a quaint, cozy specialty shop where shelf upon mysterious shelf is filled with such oddities as joy buzzers, garlic taffy, dribble glasses, and rubber masks. Oh, rubber masks attract the wandering eyes of visitors to the shop, and
Hmm.
sometimes the wandering fingers of some of the more youthfully enthusiastic guests. So that's like a fun way of describing it.
Hmm.
House of Magic, which is what it was called, was one of the original opening day stores in Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was located to the left side of the street between the Penny Arcade and the Tobacconist.
Hmm.
Wild. Um,
I remember the tobacconist.
well, you don't remember it, right?
No. Wait, yeah. I feel like I remember. Okay, this is what I remember. I remember there being some, like, or perhaps this was not on Main Street, but I feel like I remember there being a statue of, like, an indigenous person, like a native
I feel
person.
like I remember that too, but maybe we saw it on a video, but maybe not.
I
We'll
feel
have
like
to
I
look into
remember
that.
seeing it with my own
Yeah,
eyes. You know
okay.
what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So but maybe that was just like a holdover from it existing, and
Like
it
how
you
the
know what I mean?
facade's there now.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
Because,
It
and
certainly
this
isn't
is
there anymore.
interesting. Right, and it wouldn't be.
But I
Yeah.
feel like I even remember it being right by Casey's. Like I can
Yeah,
see it, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. You might be right. Um, anyway, so it says the store sold tricks such as playing cards that turned into handkerchiefs, monster masks, puzzles, books, gags.
I would have loved to be in here as a kid. This sounds
Yes,
great.
yeah, yeah. Cast members working at the store would perform various tricks, and it closed on March 19th, 1995,
Oh wow.
to become part of the Main Street Athletic Club.
Right.
Yeah, so that was before just turning it all into a huge emporium.
Right.
But that's why it's decorated the way it's decorated now down there.
We
Yeah,
we
go
learned
ahead.
this firsthand. We were just in the Main Street Emporium and we asked
We
one of
were
the
buying
cast
something,
members.
yeah.
Yeah, we asked one of the cast members one day, "Why is it all sports photos in here?" And they're like, this whole area was meant to be a tribute to Walt Disney's, like, appreciation for organized youth sports, and it's because it
Yes.
was themed to this sports. What was it called? Athletic what?
Main Street Athletic Club.
Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so that's what took its place. Anyway, later on, it talks about the facade coming back. I will get to that in just a second. So on opening day in '71, that's where it was, between the Tobacconist and the Penny Arcade, and the facade, the architecture, and the coloring styles had kind of a gothic revival feel, you know.
Cool.
It kind of, the facade does now too. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Um, and if people said at the time that, or at the time of it closing, I guess. Well, maybe not. I don't know when the original Addams Family came out, but that it had that kind of a vibe to it.
Oh, I like that kind of a vibe.
Yeah, yeah. And there was also the Merlin's Magic Shop. I don't know how much I should even mention that because it was in Fantasyland, but it was so interesting to me that there were two magic shops in Walt Disney World.
We
Now
have
there's
a Merlin's
none.
Fantasy Shop.
Yeah.
Where was that in ours?
I didn't even get into it because I was like, well, we're on Main Street.
I
So
have to assume it's either where the Filler Magic gift shop is now, or the
the one with the Jack and the Beanstalks. That's what
Yeah.
I would imagine. But I
Right.
mean, that's just in my head.
Right.
But like, doesn't it make sense? You could even,
Yes.
it could have even still had a lot of that decor.
Right. It could have very much been that building.
Yeah.
Or Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. That
All
might
of that
be a
stuff's
newer.
new.
Yeah,
You know
that
what I
might be a
mean? Yeah.
newer.
Philhar Magic. I don't. Philhar Magic happened in our lifetimes, but I don't know what was before it.
I believe that was
No, Snow White's was across the
it
way.
was a live Lion King puppet show.
Okay, I have no memory of that.
Yeah.
I believe you though.
Yep.
But
And
it sounds
before
like
that,
something
it
that we
was
wouldn't
the
have done.
Mickey Mouse review.
Okay, huh? Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, 1 second. Um,
The Lion King puppet show, I believe, was like in our lifetimes, but probably too early for either of us to remember.
yeah.
And then it was closed for an extended period of time before it became
Puppet, like
film.
actual puppets,
It was
or
like, well, it was like a musical,
uh-huh.
but like all of the action was done by these like big puppets. Like, you know how when you're
Like
watching,
like in the Nemo show?
no,
Not
it's
that
more
big,
like when you're watching the blacklight scene in the Little Mermaid musical where they do Under the
yeah,
Sea and it's
yeah,
all puppets.
but without the black light.
It's kind of like that, and it's without the blacklight. Instead, they're just like, oh, there's a cliff, and all of the action is happening on top of a cliff, so they can be operating the puppets from beneath the cliff, type of
Yes,
thing. You know what I mean? That's
right,
what it was like. It was like
right.
an all felt Lion King experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and didn't last very long, or
It, I don't.
I'm gonna have to YouTube this
Yeah, I
after
don't
we're done.
remember how long it lasted. Like, I don't know, but
Okay,
I didn't.
or I'll ask my mom.
I
She,
don't remember ever seeing it, and I didn't get to experience it. So I think it's from before my time.
uh-huh.
But then Magic, that was fairly recent. So I think there was just some time where there was nothing there.
Oh yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
Huh. I feel like I'm gonna look it up and find out what was there and remember it, but not if it's that. So
Yeah, I see. The reason I Googled it is for that same reason. I was like, oh, what was there before
yeah.
this? And it was like a Lion King puppet show. It was
Everything
like,
else
shut up.
everything else in Fantasyland, I know what has been there since the beginning.
Yeah, but Lion King came out in 90 what? 96?
No, no,
94.
like three or four,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
93 or 94.
So even if it came around in
I think.
95 and lasted until 98, then if it was only gone, Filler Magic came in what, 2000, maybe 6 or 7? So that's some downtime for that space.
Yeah, that talk about prime real estate.
But not an unheard of
Not
amount of downtime
no.
for Disney parks as we've come to know.
Yeah, that's true. Um anyway, sorry, back to the House of Magic. So it opened, or I mean, it closed on March 19th, 1995, and then it had the Main Street Athletic Club. But then the facade reappeared in 2017, and nobody had even really like spoken of it reappearing. So
It reappeared like a magic trick.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Isn't that funny?
Yes.
Um,
How strange.
Complete with signage promising tricks and puzzles, but I mean, the interior remains to be part of the Emporium.
That's almost cruel.
Yeah,
I find.
I think it's just part of like the illusion. Like, but
you mean there's not actually an athletic club in there? You know what I mean? Like, if all of the signs were realistic, then whatever. But the fact that there used to be a magic shop makes it a little,
yeah,
a little cruel.
yeah.
Because you might think, oh, I remember there being magic tricks in there when I was a kid. And then you go back and there's what? A sweatshirt
T-shirts
for $75?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's really the negative thing I think about the Emporium is it's like all the same. I mean, I know that it's not, but it kind of is.
It is, yeah. I mean, honestly, I do think of it as one thing all the way down from the entrance all the way to Casey's.
I do too. If I were going in there and I was like, hey, I saw somebody wearing this Fantasyland hoodie that I want, and I know that they'll be selling it at the Emporium.
Totally.
I would not know where to look because it's all the same. You could,
but you can tell when you're going through there that each of the rooms
are
has their
different.
own identity.
Right.
So it's a little throwback to when, I don't know, there was maybe some more unique stuff going on in each of those locations.
Yeah.
So it does make me actually a little sad that like we're basically just shopping whatever the newest merch line is and the skeletons of these old themed stores.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And the magic shop maintaining its signage through that is also wild.
Well, it just
lost and came back.
Yeah, exactly.
What a weird story.
Right.
But hey, it's cool. Maybe it's cool that there's a remnant of it in a way.
I think so.
Like a tribute. Like,
Yes.
that's kind of nice. Like the penny arcades from the arcade gallery or whatever that was. They ended
It
up
was just
in the
called the Penny Arcade, was it not?
oh right, a bunch of the things that you could put a coin into and spin the wheel and see those. They ended up in the Main Street train station. So our stories did a
Isn't
little
that, yeah,
overlap this week.
that was, yeah, that's true. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't do the Penny Arcade, but it was like really
Yeah, it's right
connected.
next to it, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
yes, 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 totally. And when we saw that, so Jake and I rode the train not that long ago because it like
Oh
just
yeah.
reopened.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't like last week or anything, but it was pretty.
2022.
Yeah, pretty.
Recently.
Was it that long ago?
December 2022.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know, time is moving at an alarming rate.
Yes.
We've been on the train like twice and it's been open for months and I'm like, oh, the train just opened back up, but that's not even true.
Yeah.
I had this same conversation with Tyler when I told my husband I was doing it about the railroad. And he's like, yeah, they just opened it back up. I'm so glad. And I'm like, yeah, 2022.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, that happens. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Which is why it felt down for so long too, I think.
It was down for a long time.
Yeah.
2018 to 2022.
It's a long time.
That's a lot of downtime. Thanks, Tron.
But so we saw the Penny Arcade machines when we went on the train in 2022, I guess. And I was like, I guess I hadn't noticed them before because I'm surely they've been there since it closed.
I think so.
Yeah, but I hadn't noticed it before, or maybe like I had just recently been looking into the Main Street history or something like that, so it stood out to me, and I was just like, "This is wild."
They're really cool.
Yeah, very cool.
They're antiques. They're definitely like looking back into another
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
It's cool.
It bothers the germaphobe in me. I will say, you have to put your like face right up, like your eyes up on the thing.
Definitely not COVID friendly. Definitely not CDC approved.
But they were closed during COVID.
No,
the train
I
was
know.
closed.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yes,
like,
yes.
This is definitely something where I did it and I like tried not to let my face touch it, but you really can't. And then I wanted to like wash my whole face.
Right, but as a kid, you don't even know, and you're like, especially when it was open. I feel like
as a kid, you're getting your chewing gum on it.
ugh.
Kids are gross. Like, yeah.
And I feel like there wasn't as much worry back then about germs and stuff like that. Although I mean, when I was a kid, I did have pink eye a few times. So
yeah, that'll teach you.
yeah, yeah. Maybe you shouldn't be going to the Penny Arcade.
Right, definitely not if you actively have pink eye.
Yeah,
that's biological warfare.
Yes. But yeah, so I thought I would get a little bit more information. There wasn't as much information. I still think it's such a like, just a cool thing that happened that was there. I think it would be a cool thing to come back. Obviously, it'd have to go somewhere else, but you know what? It kind of is a little bit like I named like 5 things now that it's like,
what?
but like the Memento Moris.
Oh,
it
is
the
kind
vibe,
of like
you
that.
know, like
Yeah.
I feel like in Memento Moris they could sell some trick card stuff.
But they do have what I would call gimmicky stuff in
They
there.
do.
Like you can take a photo of your ghost essence or something and get it printed as a lithograph in
Right.
there. So like I feel like that is very much in the spirit of the magic shop in a way, you know.
I guess people liked magic more of back in the day because okay, when I was a kid, outside of Haunted Mansion, Memento Mori's wasn't there, but they had like you could buy souvenirs at like a cart thing.
Yes.
And we bought at least 2 kind of magic-y things from that cart. And one of them was like a leash that was like stiffened in a way that it looks like you're walking a ghost dog.
Classic.
And the other was a rock, and it looks like out of Pirates of the Caribbean, but it's made of foam, but it looks real. So if you throw it at somebody and you do good acting, it looks like they're about to get hit with a rock, but they're really about to get hit with foam. Those are the 2 things that we bought from there.
And those things would have been in the magic shop.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Although the magic shop could have been around then if it closed in 95.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. When I think back of memories of like how old I was when certain things happened, no idea.
You know what would be cool is if in Disney Springs, maybe back in that co-op area or something, they could just have a magic shop.
Yeah.
You know, I think
That would be awesome.
Go. And it doesn't.
They have a dog shop right now.
Yeah, right. They have
You
a
have room, you
Disney
guys.
dog store. But like, I think it's even if magic isn't as trendy as it once was, or whatever the case may be.
You just named one of the stores back there, you guys.
Yeah, I did. I didn't even mean to. But when you get guests so involved and you have someone demonstrating it for them, it sparks that thing in a kid that's like, I want one, I want one, I want one. So like they would make a bunch of money.
I think so too.
So I'm sure they were. They just maybe wanted more room to like, I don't know, maybe
it was lower cost stuff though. Like a pack of trick cards is probably much lower than a sweatshirt that's overpriced.
You're right. You're right. Or a spirit jersey.
And I bet those, as fantastically odd in a good way as those masks sound, they sound more like decor than something you'd actually buy.
And also, you can't
wear
them in the theme park anymore. So that does present its own ghost host of problems.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm honestly very glad to know about the magic shop. You did a great job. I feel like I know a lot of detail. I didn't even know there were two.
Yeah.
I'm trying to picture where the Merlin's one could be.
Oh,
I'm really
I can look it up.
In that. Well, I'm really glad that we got to learn like also about some of these Main Street shops that like I see the facade for
the magic shop.
For the magic shop.
Did you think it was just made up, or did you know?
I had heard that Steve Martin worked at the magic shop.
Uh-huh.
So when I saw that interview that he did. So when he explained that he was doing card tricks and stuff, I understood that had existed. But I didn't know, first of all, I didn't know that we had one that was operational.
Uh-huh.
I thought maybe just the facade was a tribute to the Disneyland one or a recreation of the Disneyland
Did you?
one.
Yeah. That and that would make sense. You know what I mean? The first answer was a Disneyland answer. Do you want to know where it was in Disneyland?
Oh, actually, yeah, that's interesting too.
So in Disneyland, it was facing the center courtyard in Fantasyland overlooking the castle.
Right.
So Okay. Yeah, all right. It looks like it might be kind of attached to Mr. Toad's, although I could be wrong about that too.
It definitely looks like
just kind of a weird picture.
Mr. Toad area, that little alleyway.
Merlin's Magic Shop, Fantasyland. Oh, this says Disney. Maybe it was just Disneyland, and what? Sometimes where we get our information could.
No, it says we had one in the Magic Kingdom Park until 1986.
Oh yeah. But it doesn't say where.
Very cool. Well, that's all right.
Well,
Merlin's Magic Shop. So how was that one different from the other one, or did you not really?
I didn't get into it because it wasn't Main Street. It would be a Fantasyland thing. Yeah.
I honestly assume that it's just basically a little bit more medieval themed and a little less like Gothic themed.
Yes, I would imagine so as well.
Right. That makes
One
sense.
of them was
potions and all that.
Yeah, and of course, because of the way that Disney was at the beginning, it was sponsored by I don't remember. I should have written it down, but I was like,
there's always a sponsorship behind all the magic. That's what we've learned.
Yeah.
The train was originally sponsored as well. I didn't get into it, but it was sponsored by like a railway line. It was like like
Amtrak or something, but not.
Because, like an equivalent. Yeah.
Yeah.
A California equivalent.
It's funny how everything used to be sponsored.
Santa Fe Railroad.
Yeah.
Was the name of the railroad. So that was interesting. It was originally called the Disneyland Santa Fe Railway. Or maybe Santa Fe Disneyland. I don't know. It was one of those. Santa Fe was even in the name for a long time.
Yeah. I don't know that I'm going to find this quickly, which is wild. Anyway.
It's just kind of I don't know how many people even remember that this existed. So
it wasn't there for long enough, I guess, to make a big impression.
Right. I can understand. We would have to look up a map from the time, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We might get back to you on that.
Yeah, I'll let you know next week.
Oh, nice. All right.
Because I'm curious.
Yeah.
And it's got to be somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
all right.
Merlin's Magic Shop. Where were you?
Yeah. Is that it? No, Main Street Magic Shop. Main Street Magic Shop in Disneyland. Okay, all right. I'm not going to waste our podcasters' time looking for this.
Okay, I'm sure they're curious to know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you sticking around to the end. And if you like this episode of the podcast, then maybe you should subscribe if you're listening on a podcast platform. It would be awesome if you could subscribe to the podcast feed and also leave us a review letting us know if you enjoyed the podcast.
Yeah, that would be super helpful. And if you're watching on YouTube, if you could like and subscribe, that really helps too.
Yeah, the visual version of the podcast. Hello.
Mhm.
If you would like to follow us and keep tabs on what we're up to and maybe learn some interesting Disney history, then you can follow us on Instagram at Neverland Navco or on TikTok at Neverland Navco.
We also have a website, neverlandnavigation.co, and an Etsy shop called Neverland Navigation.
Yeah, I think that rounds everything up.
It does.
All right. Well, what a fun episode. I'm glad we learned more about Main Street.
Yeah.
And we'll venture further into the park on next week.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And until next week, we'll see you
on our next adventure.
Goodbye.
Bye.